we get so institutionalized with the whole just white or gray beige kind of stuff. So it's nice to see a little bit of color.
Yeah, visibility.
Visibility. That's awesome.
It's funny as we were having the meeting right now downstairs. One of my old staff texted me because they were presenting. Ollie was presenting on your services, and Evelyn's like totally gives me Clubhouse vibes, and I said yes, I know. there's a new program that we're gonna roll out eventually, and which is gonna be called Clubhouse. But it's kind of, I would totally envision something like this, like what you guys have created here. The keyword, or the, what is it called? The keyword is a comfortable place or a safe space. But this really does feel like I'm chilling at home, like it's comfy, Like,
yeah, good. That's what I was going for.
Yeah, it's warm and welcoming. So
yeah, and even when it came down to because we were funded through Janice Hahn, the Board of Supervisors, and Lisa Calderon, there was like $5 million at the state, and they're like, what are we going to do with it? And Ivan Selleck, the field deputy, was like, oh, let's build an LGBT center in the eastern part of Los Angeles because there's none there. And when we started procuring the space and if you would have saw this building before, this was a probation office. Mm-hmm. And so it was like brick walls and, they really wanted to do like minimal things. And I'm like, I don't know, like how I'm going to get people in the doors if it looks like probation still, And so, and I did some research maybe a couple years ago on clinical settings. Feeling clinical and why people don't want to come in the doors who actually might need the services. Mm-hmm. And so the idea was to build a space that doesn't feel clinical at all so that people can want to come in here and just kind of hang out. And that's like the start of a conversation that leads to a progression towards a different stage of change in a person's mind and like interest in, okay, maybe I might need therapy because the therapist is sitting on the cloud couch kind of chilling, you know what I mean? And we watch Netflix and we connected, so maybe I want to sit down and have a conversation with them. And so it just kind of has changed the trajectory of how we give traditional care to participants. So,
how long have you guys been here at this location?
We have been open for a year and maybe 2 months now.
So you're a baby.
Yeah, we're brand new, yeah.
How has it been in engaging with the community and connecting? Because I know especially for any new program it's tough because you're trying to make all those inroads, but especially I think probably when you're working with such an underserved and underrepresented population, it could be that much harder to connect.
Yeah, well actually you'll be surprised, but in this first year it has not been difficult to find participants. And a big question that people were asking is like, an LGBT center in Whittier, are you sure? There are so many people who are neglected because a lot of the services are in central LA, right? Spa 4 is a plethora of services that like the day we opened was like people were coming through the doors like right away. Wow. It was pretty easy. And at this current moment, over 2,000 people have walked in through these doors, and enrolled in our programs. There's about 380 something that are enrolled currently in our different services that are happening here. And so it hasn't been difficult to find people to get in the doors. People came knocking. Our first patient, we call him patient 0. He's a pretty cool guy too. He knows he's patient 0. And he knocked on the door, he rang the doorbell, and we were like just employees kind of in here like, doing outreach and connecting with people via email. And he said, hey, I've been on a wait list for therapy at said agency for over 6 months and I need a therapist. And I said, well, you're in luck. You're patient 0 out here. Our therapist is chilling and waiting. And, since then he has progressed and actually he applied for a job with us now. So,
wow, that's awesome.
Our first participant, over 60 years old. Gay man looking for therapy, and he's like, I own a house here, I'm not homeless, I'm not like, looking for any of those services. I really just been like dying to connect with someone, and particularly an LGBTQIA specific therapist. And so he was really excited that, you know, we were open, and so he was our first participant here, which was
Wow,
cool,
that's
so,
awesome.
yeah.
I know that every time I've come by a few times, you guys always are busy. There's always something going on. I was here yesterday to take a look at the space, and there was the food giveaway or the
Yes,
stuff.
our food drive, yes.
I think that's really awesome because, you know, services are needed in all parts of the community in the service area. You know, our neck of the woods is Service Area 7, which you're part of. So again, for me to find the space, I was like, this is really cool. I'm like, because I know that often people reach out to us for resources. And so like part of our job is getting these resources together and making the community aware. Again, that's why having your organization present downstairs today or at our SALT meeting was really cool because everybody lit up, everybody was listening, and there was a lot of services mentioned that you guys provide. So I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, and the space, you know, on the outside of the building, you can see a mural that was really, really important to Ivan Selleck, LA County Field Deputy, and myself, because I wanted people to know that this is an LGBT center, but everybody is welcomed here. No one's going to be turned away for services because, you know, I just know and acknowledge that, like, there are so many things that participants and people in the community might need that don't identify. And sometimes people that identify have parents, right, who have food stamps that are gone now, right,
Yeah.
and things like that. And so we want to service all of those people, and we really, really wanted to foster a family-oriented kind of space. And so, for example, on every Thursday, our food drive, the food drive doesn't really serve a large amount of our LGBTQIA identifying population, right? But like a lot of their families and their parents
Yeah.
who house them and, you know, take care of them and make sure they come to therapy here are people who line up to make sure that they can get a carton of eggs.
Yeah.
Carton of eggs can be up to $13 in this local area
Oh,
right
yeah.
now.
Oh, yeah.
And so giving out those for free every Thursday, you know, means a lot to our families who show up for their, you know, their young people who are might be enrolled in services here.
And you're supporting the families of individuals. Everyone's connected. It kind of reminds me, so Manny and I have a men's group that we run. And a long time we were asked if it was exclusive just to men, and we're like, no, this group is for men, but we understand that men are connected to their wives, to their grandmas, to their brothers, to sisters. So anyone is welcome. The idea is to support everybody. So I like what you're saying. It's basically the no wrong door policy kind of thing, right? Anyone is welcome, and I felt welcome. I remember when I walked in, I walked out of here with a hat, some brochures, and I was like so excited because I'm like in my head I was like, I'm gonna make this happen. I think I even texted Manny and I was like, Manny, I think we're gonna get an interview with the LGBTQ Center. And I think his response was like, whatever. But I'm so excited that we're here. I think it's really cool. I'm really big on bringing new resources and new information to the community and just bridging those gaps. I really enjoy that, and particularly for our youth. You know, I'm a father, I have a little girl, so I can only try to envision or think about things that might help her in her future and other youth. But one of the questions I gotta ask, if you don't mind, is maybe telling us a little bit about yourself and the role you're foreseeing here.
Yeah, I like to talk about myself,
That's
so
cool,
it's
bro.
okay.
Let's do this.
You're in the right place.
That's
There
a
you
good
go.
one for me.
By the way, I'm going to interrupt you. I usually say welcome, thank you for joining us, but thank you for having us at this location. This is so cool.
Thank you. Of course, of course. Yeah, I'm happy to have you guys here. I'm Damonté Watson. I am technically the Director of Integrated Care with LACDMH, which is the Los Angeles Center for Alcohol and Drug Abuse. I've been with the agency going on 7 years. It's been a while. And the Whittier LGBT Center is an extension of LACDMH. And so we are all LACDMH staff employees that work here at the Whittier LGBT Center. The Board of Supervisors, as a part of an initiative, were the ones to build the facility and fund us, but LACDMH is the 501c3 that manages the program and the building. I designed the building. I got the opportunity to build a blank canvas and build the programming and everything here. And so it's been such a privilege. A little bit about myself is I'm for the community, by the community. I have a plethora of lived experience and in mental health, HIV, substance abuse, and I'm very passionate about those areas. And I am passionate about those areas, again, because I am for the community, by the community. And I like to share this because I like to make sure that people in the community and in the public know that I say that I'm by the community, for the community, because all of the worst, painful tragedies you can imagine have happened to me before I was 10 years old. Mm-hmm. Right? And it took a road, a journey of recovery and resilience to get to where I am today. And I like to tell people, people say, how did you climb the ladder so fast? And I said, I did, and I clawed.
Yeah.
Right? And it took community-based organizations that are built like this one for people, for the community, that were able to give me a recovery. And just to share a little bit, LACDMH is the agency that took me in, that I completed my treatment in, that now made me an executive director.
That's awesome.
Right?
It's going full circle.
Yeah.
Full circle,
Yeah.
yes. And I'm sure they didn't anticipate for me to be so successful and for this to be built here, but things happen for a reason, and I think that my lived experience has allowed for a way and a pathway for people to come out on the other end and be successful as well. And so, hearing you say things like, oh, this space feels so safe and, comfortable, that tells me I've done my job and I'm continuing to do my job, because that is the goal here, for people to know that this space is for them and that the leadership team here is a part of them as well. So that's me. That's a little bit about me. My future goals is to become a physician and a psychiatrist.
That's awesome.
So that I can support on a micro level instead of so macro right now. But so hopefully I will be applying to med school next year to...
Oh, when you graduate, if you need a job.
I was
Yes.
going to say that.
I'm just telling you. I'm just putting that
You're
out
like,
there.
okay.
I see his little wheels started to...
There's always opportunities in our
Thank you.
service
Thank
area.
you for that.
You know what's really cool about this? It reminds me a lot of the PRC. So when back a few years, we have a program called the Peer Resource Center, and it's 5 peers, 4 peers. The support groups that we run are ran by peers. We're just kind of there to support. But it reminds me a lot of what we were trying to do. Kind of build a real safe space. I hate it when people use Q words, or they're not called Q words. It'll come to me, but people use language that they don't really mean, or that they don't really understand. Like when people talk about recovery, it takes a person that's been through it to understand.
Yeah.
Right? It's hard. It's different. It's a different road for everybody.
Well, it's so much more impactful.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not just regurgitating something you learned from a book.
Thank you.
You're making it real.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a big difference when you're connecting with someone. And obviously, I could tell you, I could sense and I could feel your passion and for what you do. Just based, first time meeting you and just talking about so passionately about what you do in this place, that goes a long way in just connecting with someone, especially someone. Sometimes, and you know this, when they walk through the door, it took everything in them to get to that point.
Yes.
And that might be your only opportunity to really engage them and capture them and get them, to buy into services. So it's really important to have that. That I think is being able to speak that language. You can't teach that in school.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned that, it's so funny. My first job outside of LACDMH, because I've worked in several different sectors outside of the agency, this has been my primary job most of my career, but I also built what was called Project Room Key, and I was a project director for that when it first launched. And 285 beds, and I was focused on housing at that time, so that's kind of how I got the position. And then I also built some programs for the LACDMH Center. And at one point, getting jobs, because I have a history and I have a background, so I have a criminal record, right? And thank goodness it's going away now. But when they did the live scan, right? HRs want you to meet with the attorneys and things like that, right? And, you know, some of the questions they asked me was like, do you know what's on your background? I'm like, I sure do. And then they asked me about, you know, what did I learn from that experience and how does that come into the work today? And I said, I have something valuable that you will never be able to find. And it's like, you can hire people who are book smart and educated, and so am I, first of all. But like, you can hire people who have that, but I have something they can never learn. Right? I have a lived experience that will connect patients. I said, I am the patients that we sit down with. And so my connection to the community is on next level compared to someone who just, you know, gets a master's degree. And not to say that those people cannot be effective, right? And there are some people who are born with this innate ability to have empathy, right? But I have that little added empathy because I understand how difficult it can just be to walk through the door and say, hey, I need help today.
Well, that life experience is actually bridges that academic, all the skills we get, it bridges it with real life, you know, real life experiences, right?
Yes, exactly.
I think this is cool. You know, I think it really helps to bridge those gaps. And people really, how would I say, they receive that well. Like, I feel like you don't have to try as hard to try to connect someone with services if they also realize that you've been through something and you connect in that manner. It changes the whole dynamic of everything. Even again, yesterday we were doing our men's group, and I'm going like this because we have a live studio audience. But we were doing our men's group, and it was super awesome. Like, I've said this multiple times, so for our viewers, they've heard this story, but I really dig on the fact that when we have our group now, the group runs itself. We're really just like, we're really just kind of like hanging out, and once in a while I'll say something dumb or something silly just to like throw people off.
It's more than just once in a while.
It's all right. That's what I do. You know, that's the way. It's part of my own self-care. I'm big into sci-fi. I like to be silly. You know, now, because before I used to be like, I think I was a lot more uptight before. Like in retro, just going back, I was a different person. But you evolve, right? Everybody changes. But I guess my point to you, I think that what you're doing here is super needed, super creative for all members of the community. And there are a lot of youth who struggle with identity, right? And need this type of support. And so, like, kudos to you, bro. Kudos to having this place and again, allowing us to be here. This is really awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I think it goes beyond youth, because I think we're finally seeing that there's more comfort, especially like I was saying, we facilitate a couple of like men's support services, and even being able to breach the topic of identity. Early on when we first started this, it wasn't that easy. It wasn't something we really talked about, and it's become something that it's not that big of a deal. I mean, we've had a couple, and at least I remember one of the groups. We had an older gentleman who came out to the group, and our reaction, I know we were kind of like looking at each other like, how is the group going to react? They were embracing. They were like, good for you, bro. And it was something that I think, go back a few years when we first started, we're going to have to intervene. We're going to have to de-escalate the situation. And it definitely was something that was more, not only were they accepting, but like I said, they were embracing and empowering of him to be like, and it was a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, and creating those spaces, what I believe is it allows other people to see other humans, right, before they see what they identify as and things like that, right? And, you know, and I tell people this all the time, and it's so important that people know this, is like, LGBTQIA specific people are not looking to be segregated from the rest of the population, right? We don't need separate services or anything like that, right? That has happened because the lack of respect for me as a human being, right? Or fear or things that have happened that are a part of trauma response and things like that from my past, right? But like, people are looking to be integrated into spaces, right? And having them be in the space. And so, having a men's group and having someone come out to those men in that group is huge, right? That's like it'll tell you, it tells you, the work that is being done in that space for someone to come out in that space, you know what I mean? And like, when it comes to here, like one of the things that like was going back and forth with building is like how big the rainbow is outside the building, because I want people who are not out to like, I wanted people who are not out to also want to come into this space, right? And so, figuring out how we foster that has been a lot easier than we expected, and I believe that like people who are not openly comfortable with themselves are also kind of dying to be openly comfortable with themselves and just finding a way to navigate that. And so it's nice to hear that you guys are fostering that kind of space, because we want to be in traditional spaces,
So kind of like into your story, similarly, at our PRC, we had a mural painted by this amazing artist, a community member. And that was because of my boss. It happened, but it was a challenge to, how would I say, have some people wrap their brain around. It makes people feel it's more welcoming, and it helps people feel comfortable sitting in the lobby. When you walk into that space, the first thing people see is that mural. And it's an amazing mural with colors, with beautiful flowers. But like into what you're saying, I think having the artwork, having a space that feels comfy with live colors, it really does help establish like, it's okay. You can chill, you can relax. Because one of my biggest things I used to tell him, one of my pet peeves is, you walk into one of our buildings and it's sterile. And it's right. And
cold.
And I get it. I get it, it's a professional setting, it's a medical setting. I get it, right? No one's taking anything away from that, but you have to help people feel comfortable. Because when people reach out, they're at their wit's end.
Right.
People just don't walk in because like, hey, let me come see what's inside here. It doesn't work that way, right? But I think, again, I guess I just keep on saying the same thing. This is really cool, man.
Yeah.
I even like the TV right there. It's really nice.
Yeah, and I appreciate what you were saying as far as, like, the community doesn't want to be isolated. They just want to be a part of. And I think that's huge, because I'm hoping that our system is changing towards that. Yeah. Instead of doing more like, so there's a population that needs a service, whatever it might be, it's where do we find a space for them? But we have the space. Like, we need to include them. We need to embrace them. Yes. And ideally, because I think similarly we've been experiencing more so recently a little bit of that with trying to get services for the immigrant population. Obviously, it's controversial, and our role is just to support people. Whatever type of trauma or emotion people are being impacted by, our role is to provide support, and that's obviously something that's been impacting our service area tremendously. But there is this, like, how much do we, like, promote it? Is it going to be stigmatizing? Like, we could really put it out there, but are people then now afraid to get those services because, well, now everybody knows if I'm going to this group here that I'm undocumented, or so it's been a struggle as well. And I think it goes back and forth depending on how people are feeling. But I share that because of what you were saying earlier, but also I'm curious as far as like the stigma. Like, what's been your experience in dealing with the stigma and providing outreach out to the community? Because I know we work really hard on trying to destigmatize mental health, mental illness, and mental health services. So I'm curious what's been your experience with that?
Yeah, so it's a rough road. Luckily for the community here, for the center, I proudly wear that weight on my back. But it is just that, it's a weight. And I have, something I'll talk to, the first stigma that happened was like this talk when we were building the center, over a year before we opened, of whether people were gonna come into the doors because we're in Whittier and we're in a conservative part of Whittier, right? And whether that was going to, you know, be a hit where we were gonna need services. And I'm like, because it's a conservative part of Whittier, there's maybe, you know, some upper echelon part, you know, a part of the local area, people think that like people don't need services. And I'm like, stigma. Right away, I'm like, what? You're delusional. You know, that's stigma, right? Because people definitely needed services. And I mean, we're on Mar Vista and Painter, which is like, you know, one of the better parts of the area. And, you know, to have 2,000 people come through the doors, right,
Yeah.
tells you that that was just a stigma.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of things that we kind of took on, that I took on happily. You know, there was a point where a specific group of people asked me and interviewed me before we opened on, oh, you know, we're concerned about this turning into WeHo, and, you know, are people going to walk around here wearing jock straps? And I'm like,
It took me a while when you said Weasel, I'm like, huh? And I'm like, oh,
West
okay.
Hollywood,
Yeah,
right?
Sorry.
Yeah.
and, you know, my response was, first of all, there's nothing wrong with people walking around in jock straps during a Pride event, if that's the demographic or the people, right,
Yeah.
that they are serving. And there's a space for those people, but this is not that space
Yeah.
where we are doing that here, right? This is a community-based org. We're not, it's
Yeah.
not a party. No one's drinking here, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or hanging out and partying, you know? So it was just those kinds of things, right? Where people have this idea that like, people who are seroconverted or HIV positive, right, are this specific demographic of person, or, you know, all of those things. And what happens is that stigma goes so deep rooted that my participants are afraid to come in,
Yeah.
because that's how deep rooted the community sees them, right?
Yeah.
There are so many people who hide, you know, just their HIV status. One of the, you know, things I have done throughout my career is share that I am HIV positive, and I'm not embarrassed of that, right? That doesn't give me any shame. I still have a partner at home who loves me, right? Who has no problem with my HIV status and things like that. And you know, it's those kind of, you know, like stigma, deep-rooted, heteronormative things that, you know, is a barrier to services for people,
absolutely.
right? And it goes so deep-rooted that even whether I'm a gay man or straight man, right, I feel uncomfortable by therapy, you know? And I mean, my partner is obviously a gay man, right? He's, you know, and he's Salvadorian, right? And I tell him all the time, I'm like, you know, you don't need to have something wrong to get a therapist. So get a therapist, you know? Like,
It's funny you say that.
and
that's
he's
true.
so like, you know, like, oh, I could just talk to you. And I'm like, no,
No.
I am not your clinician. And I'm not looking to be your clinician.
Yeah.
And so get somebody, you know? And it was like plucking hairs, and it was like couples therapy before it was like him even being comfortable with individual therapy. And that's how deep rooted that is.
It's a systemic,
You know?
but it's also, how would you say, generational, right?
Yes.
It's generational.
yes.
It's deep rooted. It's all those things. And it's funny you were mentioning about therapy, because a lot of people feel that way. You know, I was born here, but I'm Mexican, right?
Mhm.
So the stigma within the Mexican culture alone is bananas. If you as a Mexican seek services, the word is yo no estoy loco. I'm
Yeah,
not crazy,
you're not
right?
crazy. Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's only okay to cry when you're having a couple of drinks and listening to like Pedro Infante.
It's
or,
true,
you know,
right?
That's the only time it's okay to cry. And, you know,
Yes, yes.
yeah, no, there's a lot of misconceptions out there, and you know, my staff have heard me before when we're trying to do outreach and get services in different parts of the community. Same things. I get the same questions as, so are you guys? You know, our concern is you guys are going to open up the doors, and not all the mentally ill are going to come here. It's like we don't have any mentally ill people in our community. And they're like, oh, they're there. Believe me, it does not discriminate. It doesn't
Right.
care whether you're unhoused, whether you're a billionaire. mental illness is non-discriminatory. It
Yeah.
impacts all of us.
Yes.
So
And I mean, I like to believe that like we live in America and like we all got it a little bit. Like
Right.
there's a little taste of it in everybody, right? And so
Yeah.
we're all running from something that we all kind of got.
well,
you
we all
know?
got to get we get our cars serviced. We have to do updates on our phones,
Right,
all this stuff.
right.
But we don't do that for ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
For our own emotional well-being, for our own sanity. I mean, it's like we also need to get those, updates and get those tune-ups every once in a while,
Right, exactly.
just for our own well-being. And I do think, like part of what you were sharing earlier, it's more so true when you're talking about people of color, when you're talking about like even addressing about a man of color who's gay. It's like you're talking about so many different areas that we're already hard on ourselves. The last thing we want to do is open up,
Right.
right? And finding, like we were talking about earlier, finding that one opportunity when we are open and willing to try and get help. It's really important to take that opportunity and engage with them.
Yes,
So
you have to. I mean, like I tell the team here, and I live by this in my personal life, is if I stay ready, I don't have to get ready, right? And I mean, I'm a fun guy, and I go to events, concerts, and things like that. I go dancing, whatever, and people are always like, "Why do you always have a bag?" Because there's always Narcan with me, those
There
kinds
you
of
go.
things. I
There you
mean,
go.
I stay ready,
Yeah. I like that.
No one's dying on my watch, but if I got anything to do with it. But like those kinds of things, when it comes to connecting with the community, it's like it's like I'm showing up in all of these different spaces, but I'm also bringing my authentic self, and I believe that helps like burns down some of that stigma,
Yeah.
remove some of those barriers because. I can speak all day about what the stigma is and what the barriers are, but what I'm passionate about is talking about how we figure out how we can collaboratively work to break those down, right? And we just have to show up sometimes and just be our own authentic self and share about what we have going on, what our lived experience is, right? And if I'm silent and I'm secret about my status, about what I've been through and things like that, right? And I hide away from those things, then not only am I bringing shame to other people who have that lived experience, but also now someone who might be struggling doesn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, the pathway forward or the opportunities that are endless for them. So, yeah, and just to share on like connecting with the community and stigma, we try to outreach to all of the local high schools and all of the school districts, even expanding outside of SPA 7. And sometimes people, are concerned about like condoms and HIV education for youth and things like that, right? Stigma. And sure enough, I got a call from a particular place in school and youth who, went on their own, got an HIV test and was positive, right?
wow.
And then they're on the phone, Damonté, help us, what do we do?
Yeah.
And although it is an honor to be a part of that, sometimes I like to believe that like if you steer away from having fear behind me providing condoms and education and PrEP, no one has to be HIV positive
That's
anymore,
true. Yeah.
There's preventative measures, but if we keep these biases and, we keep on this slow tread to, breaking down these barriers, then, these are the kind of things that result from that. And so I always like to share and talk about things like that.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I was curious to ask, like, in your experience, what do you feel is a resource that's mostly needed in the community? Like, what do you feel is lacking? For example, in my role, mental health world, I know just about every provider in our service area, and if there's new ones, my boss lets me know, or the team will say, hey, we ran into this spot. What do you feel is like the most needed?
Yeah, great question. Well, if any med schools are listening, what's missing is doctors and licensed prescribers and providers who identify.
That's true.
That's huge. Yeah.
That's what's missing. That is what's missing. It is so, I mean, there are probably 4 licensed physicians who are openly about their experience in the community. And even them have a story and experience about how when they came out about like, oh, I'm an addict and I'm sober now, right? The Board of Medicine kind of got involved a little bit. And so it's about those concerns and those risks. So what does that tell me as like an alcoholic who identifies, and I've been sober, right, for a long period of time now. And, you know, that also tells me like, you might not be able to go to med school, right? And I'm like, to hell with that, right? Luckily I'm fearless, right, in that sense. But like, right, what's missing is that like space or a path forward for people who identify to be in these roles, you know? It is a gift and a privilege to be like, I've been to jail, I'm positive, I'm gay, I'm black, and I'm executive management for an agency, right? And I've been lucky that like I've had these roles that allowed me to build these programs that I'm passionate about and things like that. But it's rare. I'm a rare commodity right now, right? And so it's that's what's missing. That's what's missing. There are people with lived experience who have difficulties finding opportunities to do the work because they're passionate people like me, you know. Even particularly with our agency, we don't have direct data on it, but there's over 700 and something employees, and there is a large amount of those employees who were patients, who graduated our program, you know. So, and that's what's missing.
You know, I won't go there because we'll drift into hours of it. But I think it says a lot about society and where society's at. It needs to be able to give an opportunity to individuals who have lived experience. There are people who are magical that don't get the opportunity because they're judged, right? Because first thing that people do is, what do? They see you, you look weird, you know, right?
Right.
We need to stop doing that as a society, you know, but little by little, I'm a big believer in fate, I guess you can say, and I believe that things happen for a reason or for a purpose. Maybe at a certain point, we weren't ready to receive the message and for people to change in the whole as society, right? Maybe now we're reaching that point where maybe people are ready now. As I see things opening up a little bit more, we still encounter tons of stigma.
Yeah.
It's still a thing, bro. It's like, especially in our community again, you know, it's still a thing.
Yeah, and to that point, you know, that's why I think it's so important to start building capacity for leaders with lived experience who might look different or, you know, might not be that traditional CEO or executive leadership because, you know, it allows for people to want to engage in services when they see that. It really, really does. I mean, this space is not just like, oh, I'm a genius, right? It's like there's this part of like me that's here in this space because of my lived experience that has so many connections with the community that also has fostered what has happened here. And there are people like me who are so passionate that like whether you want to see me or accept me or not, I'm here, you're gonna swallow the pill. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, and a good example is, you know, I
gotta
have
interrupt
braids.
you.
Yes.
Do you mean to tell me no one has ever come to you and said, I need to speak to your supervisor, and you say, I'm the supervisor, and they're like, well, I need to speak to somebody above you, and then you just turn around and say, hello, it's me.
You know, I mean, there have been people who's like, well, who's your supervisor?
Yeah.
I'm like the CEO.
Yeah.
Good luck trying to get him on the phone,
Let me
you know?
Let me get my badge. Hold on, let me get my badge.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I agree with you full-heartedly. I've had experiences with individuals where they only open up or connect once they realize, or I share a little bit of my story, and they're like, oh, damn, that's crazy. And you're in this role, or you're doing X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, yeah, but, you know, it's, again, I'm a big believer in faith, but it's also you. I hate it when people say, you're so lucky. Oh, hell no. I am not lucky. You don't know how hard I've worked.
I am not lucky. I am very unlucky.
Right? You know what I'm saying? But sometimes it's a little bit of, not both, but like you kind of make your path as you get older. Like someone said the other day, I made a comment and they said, "Oh, we all did dumb things when we were young." As a matter of fact, I met up with one of my professors last Sunday, and he was the one who told me when we were young, we all did dumb things, right? And so we grow. It's part of the lived experience, your life. what
Some
you
of
go
us
through.
still make dumb mistakes.
Absolutely, every day.
Yeah.
I've made some adult dumb mistakes.
Hey,
yes.
I forgot to delete the memory on that card, and we almost had a tragedy. But no, yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is I totally feel where you're coming from. And like Manny said, I see your passion, and I think that's awesome. We need more of that. We need more people who will stand up for what's right and what's needed in the community. Like I really enjoy what I do because it allows me to be creative, but I also see the impact. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I love making an impact. I love having the crew who's here and dedicated. I love working with Manny because he's the same way. He's very dedicated. We do our thing. We get creative. And I see that in you, and I think that's really awesome.
Yeah,
I
thank
think
you.
that's
I
really
appreciate
awesome.
that.
Yeah. I mean, geez.
I was gonna ask, and I'll take the opportunity to ask it right now. You know, we're entering the holiday season.
Mhm.
In our experience, usually it's a difficult time, especially post-pandemic, where we had to isolate. Some people are still even more so isolated than ever.
Yeah.
And then with everything that's going on around the world, people are isolating even farther. And you know, again, I think it's true more so for people who are underserved, again, underrepresented, right? They don't feel like they fit anywhere. Nobody will understand them. And the holidays can be a tough time because even if you have family, you might still feel alone. And if you don't have family, that's even a harder hit sometimes.
Right, yeah.
So my question to you is, you know, we're chatting here just as guys, but we have folks that watch this. You know, what message would you have to somebody who's watching this who may be going through something like what we just talked about, what we just described, and this is the opportunity to engage them? What message would you have for them?
My message would probably be that whatever you are going through right now, your feelings are valid, but there is also a road.
That's awesome.
And if you are willing to get a little speck of humility and remove all the noise, there are some people who are willing to help you and are ready to help you. And you just kind of got to remove that fear. The holidays can be very, very difficult for a lot of people, and myself included. And something I always like to say is that, like, if the holidays traditionally don't work for you, build your own.
There you go.
Build your own. And if you're hungry on Thanksgiving, right now I have 15 turkeys and I'm getting more, so come on down to the center because there will be food here,
There you
period.
go. That's awesome.
By the way, we are here in person at the LGBTQ Center in the city of Whittier, just in case you guys missed that. I'm gonna run like text under you,
Okay.
probably here with information. But again, thank you so much for having us here. This is such a cool space. You know, maybe we can have our own media room one day eventually, but this is such a cool space, and I really appreciated the conversation, just being able to engage with you and get your feedback.
I'm like Jaime was saying, not to sound like a broken record, but I appreciate you hosting us. This is great. Really happy to have you as part of the service area because I know that it's a huge need for the community. I think it's something that, like you were saying, we know we need it, and although there may be some misconceptions out there about, well, are people really going to come?
Right.
It's like that, right? That old, I forget the name. Was it Field of Dreams? Right? If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
people out
exactly.
there.
Yeah.
They're out there. They may not be as outspoken. In fact, they're probably isolating. But these services are here for a reason, and I'm really, really, really glad to have you on here, and should be proud of everything that you're doing here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. any opportunity to, elevate, and share my story, I'm like happy to do so, so.
And I mentioned it to one of your staff while they were presenting, but it'd be cool if you guys came out. We have a big event we do in June, just to table and have resources there. That would be amazing.
Well, I'll take it one further, and remember we're recording this. We also do a panel
Oh, great.
of men that we interview.
I was gonna ask you, but I
So we'll extend the invitation right now. If you consider, we'd love to have you be one of our panelists. We have one every year. We have folks from all different backgrounds, and we just talk about focusing around men's health issues. Everybody talks a little bit about their story, and we're always surprised every year because we always think that's going to be the lull in the event where people are going to go out and eat and stuff, and we don't. It seems to be something that the community is really captivated by. So, extending the invitation.
Thank you. Sign me up.
all right.
Yeah.
all
You
right.
know, I'm a part of the sober community, and like being of service means I rarely say no. And so, although I'm of service all day, every day, yes, I would love to be.
Awesome.
Awesome.
I am so passionate. So anything I can do, if one person hears one little speck of information that helps them change their lives, then I did my job that day. So
I got your number. And
it's memorialized on
There we go.
video. So.
It's gonna be on the interweb for everybody to see.
Perfect. You heard it here.
But maybe we can come back within a year or two, check up on you. We love to do that too. We've had a couple of repeat offenders on the podcast. Really, thank you again for having us here in this great space and sharing some information with us. It's really cool, man.
Yeah.
I'm honored. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for being
Yeah.
here. We'll give you the last. You can close us out if there's any final words you have for the audience.
Ooh, that's hard.
No pressure. No pressure. No pressure.
Can I sing? No.
Yeah, you do what you gotta do.
No, I'm kidding. I'm not gonna sing. I'm trying to think of what I'd like to say. I think my message I want to share with people is that mental illness is not a terminal disease. Substance use is not a terminal disease. You might have them for the rest of your life, but they don't own you. And you can own your life no matter what you have been through, no matter how bad it seems. There is a way forward. And if you don't know where that pathway is, come on down to the center, and we can shed some light on a pathway for you. So we're here to serve you.
Awesome. Thank you for